Hey, welcome to the podcast, DFL Before DNF. My name is Josh Rosenthal, the host and the founder of Borderlands Trail Running. I love season 3. Season 3 is it's a very selfish endeavor on my part. I absolutely love what we're all doing out there on the trails, on the courses, and when I look at my ultra sign up to see just how many times I actually get to run a race every year. I'm getting one some years, maybe 3, 4 on a good year. There's too many courses out there for me to have time to run them all, or even very many of them. And so this season is all about getting to hear about the great, cool courses around the world. These are notable courses and non-notable courses through the eyes of people who have who are running them, or who have ran them, or they're training for them. And today I get to interview my new friend Jason Atnip, and we talk about the Yeti 100. We go into detail about the course director, the history of it, and the way that race is growing. I hope someday to be able to run it, but I'll say that about every episode this season. We'll have like 40 or 50 courses that we're going to go through. So I'm probably not going to be able to do them all. And so in the meantime, I'm just super excited to listen. So without any further ado, well, maybe before we go to Jason Atnip, will you please subscribe, leave a comment on this? I'd be super grateful. Anyway, here's my friend Jason Atnip talking about the Yeti 100. All right, season 3 of the DFL Before DNF podcast. Today I'm coming to you from my backyard in Salt Lake City, and I wish it were because the weather is beautiful, and it is. But also, I'm solo dad for the weekend with three kids, and sometimes you just got to do a podcast from your backyard on a Saturday morning. Lucked out on the weather being gorgeous. Going into season 3 here, I can't tell you how excited I am about season 3. We've, at this point, by the time you listen to this, we've done a Cocodona 250, we've done a UTMB, and we're looking at notable and non-notable races through the eyes of notable and non-notable people. Like it's all about the race itself, which really is a celebration of the sport itself. If we'll probably we'll get a Western States, we'll get more of those iconic ones, but that's honestly not what I'm here for. I just want to talk about courses. Like if I could run, my body could handle more than a few ultras a year, I'd run them every weekend, because I just love to see courses. I love to see the people out there. And so as a proxy for that, I'm doing season 3 almost entirely about the great courses around the world and the great ultra runners who go for it. So today is the Yeti 100. Brand new race to me, but there was a nice gentleman who messaged me, invited me to join his podcast, the Trail Trash podcast, and then he made a joke and said, "I think that I might have you beat as the worst trail runner in America." Game on. I'm competitive, and so we chatted, went back and forth for a little bit, and through the course of that discussion, he told me about his love for the Yeti 100. Anytime, my version of that has been Zion. I just love it, and I'm obsessed with it. I keep going back to it. And today, Jason Atnip, his version of that is the Yeti 100. And so it sounds like it's beat him up a few times, but he's no less inspired by it, no less motivated to get back out there and go for it on that course. And for all of you who've been requesting, maybe not specifically Southern accents, but you've been looking for some less Western bias, today is that day. And so today, before we go any further, I'd like to welcome my friend Jason Atnip. Jason, where are you right now?
I am in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is about 30 minutes east of Nashville.
Nice. Well, let's go right into the race. And through the course of the race, we're going to learn about, excited to learn more about you and who you are and what you do, and framed through the Yeti. So what do you know, big picture, about the Yeti 100? Where's it at? I mean, I guess the original sounds like there's multiple now. What do you know about the Yeti 100?
So I learned about the Yeti 100 through the race director. The race director, his name is Jason Green. Jason Green is actually from that area. The area is actually based is in the Abingdon, Damascus, Virginia area is where it actually takes place. And Jason his family is actually from that area.
Oh, that's cool. And Oh,
so
good.
so yeah, so his family is actually from that area, and that was the inspiration for him putting it on.
Nice. And is he an old ultra runner? Do you know?
Oh, he's an ultra runner. He actually was an East Coast guy for a long time. He is
Okay.
currently out in your neck of the woods. He's in the West Coast now,
Oh, okay.
and he actively runs all the time races. I think he's done javelina recently. He comes back to
Oh,
the East
nice.
Coast and does like Mountain Mist and some of the races, more the races out here out on the East Coast as well. So he still actively runs. He
Okay.
If you follow his account, you see him all the time running. So yeah.
Yeah, it seems like, and just from my, let's call it a shallow deep dive, if that's even a thing, if that even makes sense, into the Yeti, it seems like there's some lightheartedness and also the understanding of how serious it is. What and there's like a it feels like there's kind of a brand to it, like an ethos to it that he then is saying, hey, there's like a West Coast Yeti 100, if I'm understanding correctly. What makes the Yeti 100 special or unique, or like what gives it its yeah? Why do you go back to it? What do you like about it?
So the main reason why I run his races is it's not necessarily the race itself as much of the culture of what you would call, I guess you hit the nail on the head, kind of the Yeti brand, so to
Yeah,
speak. It's a very lighthearted ultra running community from the standpoint of, yes, they want to finish, yes, they want the buckles, yes, they want to have the accomplishment of the finish, but it's very much a party style atmosphere.
nice.
Everybody is very friendly, very, it's just, it's so, I don't even know how you would describe it. It is just the most welcoming community you probably could possibly go into,
Wow,
and all his races are like that. So,
that's
but
incredible.
the 100 is definitely a lot of it because it's such a big race.
Hmm, that's cool. So then I guess what does that say about you? If I read that it's like using my language, no podium type race. They literally had on the website that they don't put the winners up on podiums. It sounds like literally. Is that, I mean, is that your vibe? Like, I know it's a leading question because I kind of know the answer, but like, what is your performance like at these races, and like, what's the kindred spirit that you kind of feel with the type of runner that you are?
So, for me, I'm there just to have fun. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Like, I'm never going
yeah,
to win. I'm a middle aged guy who doesn't really, who's not very fast. I am, my sweet spot's the 50-mile distance.
yeah. Me too.
And so, but like as a whole, but I don't really care to win. When I'm running the Yeti 100, I'm usually always like, I spend a lot of times wanting to talk to people and hear their running story, because I'll pull
Yeah,
up beside somebody and my first question is, "Hey, how you doing? Is this your first time running?
yeah,
Where are you from? Tell me about your,
yeah,
and then it becomes, and I think that's how the whole community is within the
yeah.
Yeti, because you go to these races and it's the same people at every single race.
That's cool. I can imagine. So if the ultra running community, I think anywhere in the world is going to have kindness, like that on the trail, like, hey, how you doing? This is your first time running. Like that's going to be anywhere. I think combine that with maybe the stereotype of Southern hospitality, which is, I hear your accent and think maybe there's some like also some cultural like hospitality and kindness to compound on top of that. I got to imagine running into you on the trail is probably real refreshing for people. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's funny because Jason's mom actually has came out to the race before, because she's from the area, right?
Uh huh.
And so yeah, it's very much a family feel. There's a lot
Yeah.
of Southern hospitality. I mean, you kind of nailed it on the head. I mean, the South is definitely its own world all in itself, and I think you
Right.
definitely feel that when you run his races, because
Yeah.
it definitely has a very, it's funny because he's always like talking about Dolly Parton and all this, like, it's very much got a very much of a very Southern type feel around the
Hmm.
whole race vibe in itself, right? So I
Yeah.
think, and I think if you ever go out to that community, you'll see what I'm talking about, because it's
Yeah.
definitely more of a I hate using the word, but it definitely has a very country feel to it. And
Uh-huh.
when I say country feel, I mean like Tennessee country, down south country type feel, not like country like you go to another country, but like
Oh, I see.
more
Like rural America.
rural, very rural. It's there's very folks live a lot more simpler out there, so to speak. It's definitely a lot different than say where I live, which is very urban like. So it's definitely refreshing going out there and,
Yeah.
and being in that atmosphere.
Yeah. So let's talk some more about the terrain itself. So being out there more rural, it looks like just studying times I have in my mind like some comparisons to Rocky Raccoon in that they say, hey, this is a race that sub 24 might be sub 24-hour finish for a 100 miler is actually kind of within reach for someone where it might not be on some of those big mountain races somewhere else. Is it a flatter course? The stereotype of East Coast is that for me at least is like it's real rooty and technical even if it's flat. Like what's it like? Take me to the starting line and kind of what you're seeing and what you're encountering there.
So it's really interesting. The course is a rails to trails course, but
Okay,
what
what does
makes
that
the
mean?
race rails to trails, it means there used to be a railroad that used to
Oh.
run along the actual trail.
Oh, that's cool.
And so essentially they've removed the rail line and now they've got a trail on there, right? So
That's
what's
awesome.
funny about it is you actually start on White Top Mountain and you usually take a shuttle to it. Most people
Oh,
shuttle to it, and
okay.
it is one of the wildest rides you're ever going to take in your life because it is one of the curviest,
Ugh.
craziest rides, and it's usually some like 70-year-old woman who grew up there driving a shuttle bus. And she's wide open on these roads,
Yeah.
and so I always take a motion sickness pill because yeah. And so what's funny is it's being a rails to trails. There are the stations along the station. So you start at White Top Station, which is at the
Okay.
top of the mountain,
Okay.
and you essentially most of the terrain is like a crushed gravel. So and so basically you have a net downhill at the beginning,
Okay.
and you're just trucking it. And it's funny because Jason at the beginning of his race, you know how every race director gives their speech right before a
Yeah.
race, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Look," he goes, "trains can't make left and right turns," basically saying, go straight. I've
Yeah.
never had anybody get lost.
Oh, that's
Funny
hilarious.
funny story. I actually did get lost one of the years I
This is
DNF.
why I like you, Jason, because
Yeah.
I could also get lost on something like that.
So I did get lost on one of the years I DNF there. But anyway, so essentially you run down this course. But what makes it unique, Josh, is the fact that the course has different personalities. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're at the top in this very rural Appalachia style community.
Um.
And you actually run down this mountain. You actually run past the Appalachian Trail.
Uh-huh.
There's a connector
Huh.
there to it,
Okay.
and it's very rural, and you feel very out in the middle of nowhere type of feeling,
Hmm.
in the Appalachia style. So
I love that.
you run through there, and you're going to run past some different train stations. And when I say train stations, they're like white buildings. Some of them have bathrooms attached to them. Most of them are closed
Hmm.
up, and you can't really access them, but you just kind of
Okay.
run past them, and that's where some of the aid stations are.
That's cool.
Um, yeah. And so what makes the course unique from a personality standpoint is you run to once you get to the bottom of the mountain, you run into Damascus, Virginia. And I'm not
Hmm.
sure if you're familiar with Damascus, Virginia, but
I'm not.
it's a huge hiker town.
Okay. Like a
Yeah.
through hiker sort of town, like
Yes.
it's like a major pit stop.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah. So if you're somebody hiking the Appalachian Trail, you're actually going to most likely stop in Damascus, Virginia. Okay,
Okay.
it's a stopping point for most folks. So you're going to run through this little small town of Damascus, Virginia, which has a ton of personality, lots of
Hmm.
outfitters there, lots of local food places, and you're going to run through there, and then the course changes into a kind of foresty style farmland concoction, so to speak. Okay. So you're going to
Hmm.
run through some woods. You're going to run through some pastures. You're going to run through some cows on
Oh.
course. And so you essentially just run along this very scenic style, foresty style, pasture style course, and it's all
Hmm.
flat. Okay, so we're all
Yeah.
flat through
Hmm.
this, and
Okay.
then essentially what it does is you're going to run from one city to the next. So you're going to run from Damascus into up into Abington. But what's interesting is through it all, you're gonna hit some other communities. Like they have a little community called Alvarado, which
Uh-huh.
is another major aid station, which has a train station there, has a bathroom there. And anyway, what else is cool about it is they have all these trestles along the way, which is like the bridge trestles, right? And you essentially can count how many trestles you have until you get to the end, and
Oh,
then
that's cool.
yeah, and they're all numbered and stuff, and it's got a very cool vibe to it.
I like that.
That's a way you can keep up with kind of where you are if you don't want to like look down at your watch a lot. But anyway,
That's interesting.
yeah, it is, and that's one way I actually have used the course before. But anyway, you're going to run from one city to the next. And
Yeah.
so essentially, Abington is actually the finish line, but you actually have to go there, turn around, go back up to the top of White Top, and then turn
Oh.
around and then go all the way back to Abington again.
Oh.
But yeah, so going into Abington is actually a small climb up.
Okay.
And when I say small climb, it's like a few hundred feet, maybe
Okay.
nothing, for
Yeah.
somebody like you who is used to a lot of elevation out there,
Yeah.
um, it's very minimal. And so you're gonna
Sure.
you're gonna run up there, but you're gonna run into another city, and so you're gonna run into another city, and all along the way, along the trail, you're gonna see people biking, you're gonna see families out walking along the course, because
Hmm.
it's an open community trail.
Hmm. That's awesome. But
Yeah.
what's the start time of it? Is it like a traditional like 6 a.m. kind of start
So
or
it's 7. Oh,
7?
and one quick funny story
Yeah.
along the
Yeah.
trail. Along the trail is a very high end gated community with a golf course on it. And
Uh-huh.
here's a pro tip: you run through that gated community. Pro
Uh-huh.
tip: there's a really nice bathroom that the golf course people have. So, like, if you're really wanting a posh, very nice bathroom,
That's
um,
incredible.
yeah, just wait till you pass by it. I've snuck in it multiple times and have not gotten
Not
nailed.
had issues yet.
No, no.
That's great. So the crushed gravel thing, like is that like is it crushed enough where you feel like you have good traction, or are you slipping a lot?
No, I mean it feels like it feels like you got good traction. I will say this though, man. I ran a lot of different style races. I ran
Yeah.
the Rudy Mountain races. I ran the crushed gravel flat style races. I've done the road races. I have seen more people. I've seen more blood at the Yeti 100 than I
Hmm.
have at any other course, because I don't know if you've ever have done one of these flat style courses, but
Mm-mm.
people tend to get lazy
Oh,
with their gait, right?
I could see that. Yeah.
Right? Because you're not having to pick it up for much.
Yeah, you're not having to change. You're kind of doing the same running motion. I mean, the whole time. You don't. There's not a lot of variability, so you probably get become zombie like in your rhythm.
Right. And so, with that being said, I think that's one of the easy things and one of the hard things about that race. It's one of the easy things because you don't have to have mountain legs to run that course. You
Mm,
can get that sub 24, which they do have a special sub 24 buckle for anybody that goes sub 24 there.
I like that.
Um, yeah. But the thing I was going to say was, what makes it hard as well is that it's repetition of using the same muscles
Mm,
over and over again,
yeah.
instead of having that variability of change of like going
Yeah.
up a mountain or stepping over roots or something like that.
That makes sense. Okay, the way that you're talking about it, it leads me to believe you've got a lot of experience there. Talk to me about how many times you ran it, the 100 or the 50. Yeah, give me your experience, your life with the Yeti.
So it's funny because people joke that I could run that race in my sleep or with like a blindfold on.
Uh-huh.
So my first experience with that course was actually with the 50 mile.
Okay.
distance. When I got into ultra running, I'm one of those people that don't really make smart decisions. I just kind of see something pretty, and I'm like, I want to
Yeah.
do that.
That
And
is
so
the best elevator presentation of every single ultra runner. So you're not alone by any stretch on that. So, anyways, I'm with you, and I think everyone listening is with you. We make horrible decisions, and that's why we're here.
So I got talked into running a 50K up in Kentucky.
Okay.
Okay. And that one was, wasn't tough, but it was definitely a challenge for a 50K. And so the way it worked was somebody's like, well, if you're going to run this 50K a month later, you need to run Stroll and Gym, which is this, as road race.
Okay.
And so I ran it 30 days later. And then 30 days after that, I ran the damn Yeti 50 miler. So that was my first experience with the Yeti course, was running that 50-mile race. So
Yeah.
anyway, make a long story short, that was my first experience with it. I've actually ran the 50 distance on that course twice,
Okay.
and I've ran the 50K distance once, and I've attempted to run the 100-mile distance 4 times,
Okay.
and I have DNF'd all 4 of those times. The best year was year one,
Okay.
and that was I made it 80 miles, and then just kind of lost my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay.
you
And
know,
for reference, have you tried any other 100 milers, or is Yeti the only 100 miler you've attempted?
so it's technically the only real one. Like I did a timed event of
Okay.
Jason Green's called the Seven Trails
Okay.
down in Savannah, Georgia, but I knew going out of the gate that my likelihood of being able to get 100 miles there were like very slim, because my training was literally like trash can level training.
Yeah.
um so like I think I got like 60 miles there, before I stopped, but it was a timed event. It really wasn't like a full on 100. So no, the Yeti
Sure.
100 is the only real 100 i've ever I've ever actually signed up for. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Then, so I mean, on one hand, you're saying, hey, there's like this, it's a train and you don't turn. So it's, there's certain descriptors of this race that make it sound just like Rocky Raccoon. But this is the worst word I could possibly say, but simple. And simple, not meaning easy, but simple meaning not complex compared to some other, let's say the Barkley marathons, right? Really
Right.
complex. But what is it about the race? It feels like then, based off how you described some of it, that maybe it's sneaky. What is it about the race that gets you? Is it? I mean, I'm sure there's something different every time. Is there also something that's the same every time?
So so ironically, last year there was a fairly big DNF rate.
Okay.
I can't remember the rate, but I'm wanting to say it was high. Like I'm wanting to say like in the 30% range,
Okay.
maybe even higher than that. I'm not sure. It was big. So every year
Yeah.
it's been something different. Year one was the year I should have finished. I just made a very poor choice and gave up. Year two, I found out that I actually ran through a tropical storm for 12 hours there that was sitting over the top of the race course. And I made some poor choices. I actually suffer from something called cystitis, which if you don't treat properly can you can have issues with. And so essentially I ran 12 hours of that race, ran a very strong race for 12 hours. And then I came in and didn't feel right. The problem was it was raining and I wasn't hydrating well. And somewhere close to
Yeah.
around the 70-mile range, I started like urinating blood, and just kind of
Oh my
stopped.
goodness.
Yeah, so that was the year two.
Okay. So,
Year
but that has nothing
three,
to do with your. Is that a kidney thing? What's the
yeah,
what? Tell me
yeah,
a little
that's a
bit more
kidney.
about what drove that for you.
I honestly don't know how it happened. It took us forever to come down to the diagnosis of it. So how I first found out about it was I was on a train
Okay.
and run here in town, and I was running with some friends, and it was just like
Uh
a
huh.
16, 17-mile run. And I went to the restroom, and same thing,
Yeah.
urinating blood. And I just happened to be running with a nurse.
Hmm.
And she said, "Look," she
Oh.
goes, "you need to get as much." She said, "Get as much electrolytes in you And if it doesn't stop, and in 30 minutes, go to the emergency room. So I felt real weak. Called my wife. She came pick me up. I actually was literally drinking Pedialyte in the shower. Like I had it in my hand and was like drinking it. It went away,
Mm-hmm.
but then I started having like really extreme
Mm-hmm.
like groin pain, like in the groin area, and substantial. And I went to multiple doctors about it, and went to urologists multiple times. No one could figure it out. No one could decipher what was going on. And
Hmm.
ultimately,
Yeah.
on like my third or fourth visit to the urologist, I sat down and he said, Jason, I finally think I know what's wrong with you. He goes, I actually had a female runner that I've been working with as well, similar issues as you. And he goes, I think this is what's going on. And sure enough,
Mm-hmm.
just by, running some blood work and stuff like that, they were able to determine that was what's wrong with me. But essentially what it means is I have to stay up on my hydration. If I don't, things can very
Okay.
much run off the rails really quick.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
so that was year
And
two.
is it
Year
did
three,
running induce it?
yeah, I would imagine it had to. That's what he said. I mean, I obviously I had no other
Got it.
issues
Okay.
before that time, and
Got it.
so
Okay.
year
All
three,
right.
year three, I overcompensated and drank too much, and then got sick.
Hmm.
So and then
That's
year
interesting.
four, yeah, yeah. So year three, I actually was just drinking liquid IV like too much, and
Okay.
started having really bad gastrointestinal issues like right past the 30-mile point. Um, and it just progressively got worse. And then I started like
Hmm.
actually like throwing up like after mile 50, to the point where I got really disoriented. And that's the year I got lost because I went on some
Okay.
side trail
Yeah,
and stuff.
that makes
So
sense.
yeah. So yeah,
All right. So
that was
what year
three. And
was
then
year
four
four?
was just that was this past year, and that was
Okay.
the plantar fasciitis that came out of nowhere. Basically, I just kind of timed out at around 66 miles, not 66 miles. Yeah, around 66, about 63 miles, I guess you'd say. Yeah. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's been my experience there. It's funny because like around the 60-mile range is about where I get before the wheels something happens. But yeah, I had no
Hmm.
idea that I had
Are you?
feet issues until that race.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you gonna go for it again? The 100?
I don't know. I'm not going this year.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to Spain around the time of that
Oh,
race.
nice.
But yes, I would like to say that I finished that race. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh, absolutely.
it definitely it haunts me every day of my life.
Right, for text, with me, for those who don't know, my version of Jason's Yeti has been Zion, more or less. I've ran Zion now 5 times, but I've finished it twice. However, I've also ran a handful. I've ran 5 other 100s that I have not finished, so I'm 2 for 10 now. And on some levels, it's like, imagine someone who's not an ultra runner just tuning in to Jason's 4 DNFs, and if you want to go through my history of DNFs and my journey to trying to finish my 10th, listen to season 1 of the podcast. But I think, if someone wasn't an ultra runner listening to that, and Jason, you have that problem at year 1, and then you have that problem at year 2 and year 3 and year 4, and for me to follow up, I just think maybe it's just a special thing worth noticing. Even if not special, it's interesting that it wouldn't even occur to me, even no matter how big the things are that you've encountered, it wouldn't even occur to me to not ask if you're going to run it again like I did, and for you to say, yeah, I want the finish. Who knows if it's right? I think I just like this is what I like about ultra runners, is that there's approach to race day, is filled with logic, it's filled with thinking, it's filled with consideration, lots of intention. And then there's this other side of our brain that we bring to the table of, like, that throws all that out the door and just gets so fixated on something that we want to do. So I know, for me, what it was at Zion. I'm curious for you, in light of the problems that you've had 1, 2, 3, and 4 at Yeti. and you say it's one I just want to get, and from a heart to heart standpoint, I get it totally. But I just love to see if like you could put your finger on it. What is it about it for you that makes you want to get it?
Or it's
Still
just
haven't.
to prove myself that I
There we
can
go.
do it. Like I know I can do it. Like
Yeah.
last year, I
Yeah.
knew I could do it, and I think that's it. And I think it's the fact that I just keep failing,
Hmm.
knowing that I can do it. And I don't even know if that makes sense, but because people are like, well, obviously you
Oh,
could do
it
it, you
does
would
to
do
me.
it, you wouldn't keep failing. So that's it
Yeah.
mainly. It's just like it's just like knowing that you can do something and just not being able to do it. I think that's where I'm
Yeah.
at with all of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
Yeah.
really want to finish that race more than probably anything else. Like from an accomplishment standpoint, like it would mean a lot to me to finish that race.
Yeah. Yeah. How old are you?
I am 47.
So you got a lot of good years ahead of you. Uh, how likely are you to go back? Are you likely to go back, or do you have some hesitation with what you've gone through?
No, I mean, there's no hesitation. It's just wanting to put the time and resources into doing it. I think how much it from just a time standpoint, how much time it takes to train for these races, and how much sources it takes, and they're not expensive to do, and
Right.
then you
I bet
have all the then you need a crew and you need all that, and you got to do, and it's just a ton of a ton of work, and it's just
yeah.
when I want to get back, to that point, if that makes sense. Plus, I think we
Yeah.
miss the fact that it's a Western States qualifier as well.
Okay. So
Yeah,
there's like a bucket list attached to your bucket list.
exactly, exactly. But mainly, I just want to just finish it, just to finish it. Mainly, I don't, I mean, it's just something I really want to accomplish at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Of course I get that. So you and that course, who is your crew like? Who do you bring? Do you have wife and kids? I mean, what's life like for you there?
So I have a wife. All my kids are grown, so it's really not even an issue
Oh,
of the kids anymore. We just had the last two graduate high school last year, and most of them are all in college. I think, but what I'm running into, and I'm sure you can appreciate this as well because you have kids, and you know the
yeah.
amount of responsibility you have with that is we're getting to the point now where we don't have that responsibility, and now we're wanting to kind of do our own thing, which encompasses a whole
Mhm.
lot of traveling, you know. And
Yeah, yeah.
we went to Japan last November. We're going to London and Spain in the fall. We're wanting to go to Hong Kong and Thailand. And so obviously
Oh man.
trying to work in a 100-mile race around all that is can be challenging, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you do for work? What's your day job?
I believe it or not, I manage like a Walgreens drugstore. That's what I do. I'm a legalized
Okay.
drug dealer.
So you're not a medical professional. You're management. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the full on management. Ironically,
Nice.
the way it works with our hierarchy, I actually am over the pharmacy, even though I'm not an actual pharmacist. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 that makes sense.
So I
Totally.
do the whole thing.
All right. Well,
So
I've never
so yeah.
talked to Jason Green at Yeti, but just from someone who loves the race, kind of as we wind down a little bit here, can you make a pitch for anyone to go run this race? Why should someone go run this race? We hear of where I'm at. When the race that I put on here in Salt Lake, people are
So why
traveling from all
run
over
the
the country. Yeah. So why run the Yeti? Why should someone from Utah travel to Virginia to run the Yeti? What is it? Make your pitch.
So, a couple of things. One, if you haven't been to the South, this is a great way to see the South in a different lens, because
Yeah.
the South has turned into a whole different thing now. Nashville is like a complete carnival now. It's not like what you would think it would be. So when you go to
Hmm.
run a race like the Yeti, you're actually seeing like a very authentic version of what Southern living is.
Hmm.
from the
That's
standpoint
cool.
of being able to see the community and seeing how folks live out there. The other piece to it is one, the atmosphere and the vibe. The people are just unbelievably great people. The other thing is Jason gives a ton to the community. It's a lot of resources, money, community style support into that local
Yeah.
community there. So it's not just one of those things where you're running a race, the race director, pockets the cash and is gone, right? I mean, we've got like a full
Yeah.
on guy he's from there. Like you literally run past where his grandfather lived. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, so you are legitimately like running in his family's backyard, so to speak. And so it's special, right? It's not just it's not just any course. There's a lot of familiar ties to it with him. It means a lot to him. That race is a very it's a very meaningful thing to be able to bring people to show people his background and his where he's from
Hmm.
and his people and all that kind of stuff. And so and on top of that, the course is beautiful. It may be flat, but the course itself is very beautiful. Coming off a white top is just absolutely
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous. It's a very pretty course in a very different way than folks at the West Coast is like. And it's just like
Mm.
I just keep going back to the vibe of the race. The people
Yeah.
there are just it's just very fun. There's this crazy amount there's a guy that's usually his name is he's usually dressed up in this glitter Yeti outfit like dancing around and stuff, and I mean
Yeah.
it's just crazy fun. And I know I didn't do a good job of pitching it, but like it
No, man.
obviously it's enough.
That's
It's
good
enough
for
for me
me.
to blow thousands of dollars at it for nothing. So I mean,
Yeah.
obviously I
Yeah.
keep going back to it for a reason. So it's an amazing race.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll never hear me. So I'm going to preface this next question. You'll never hear me criticize an entrepreneur for trying something. So I hope that this doesn't come off that way. But I am curious. Do you think, with all the stuff that you just said about what makes the Yeti in Abingdon um, great, do you think he can reproduce that on the West Coast? Like I want him to be able to, and I hope he can. So don't hear criticism in that. What do you think?
No, I've always wondered the same thing. I think, I don't know because I've not done the Washington version of the Yeti 100.
Yeah,
For me, I think it might lose a little bit of the specialness, if that makes sense, because the
yeah,
specialness of that course to me is the personal ties that it has to him,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you hear it in his voice, like you
yeah.
see it in his eyes, you hear it in his voice. Like there's such a familiarity to the
Mm-hmm.
community and the area. But I will say this: I've ran more of his races than just that course, and every
Oh,
single
that's
race that
right.
he puts on is top shelf.
That's
Um,
true. I hear that. That's cool. That makes sense.
yeah. So I mean, you're going to get and the thing about it is you don't quite know what you're going to get with his races. Like I remember being at Seven Trails and I was tapping out and I'd had enough. And you know who Patrick Reagan is, right? The ultra
Oh
runner,
yeah,
Patrick Reagan.
yeah. He's Does he have the course record there?
Yeah, he does. So
Yeah.
Patrick was crewing somebody at Seven Trails because he lives in Savannah.
Okay.
And so I was literally getting like pep talked by Jason Green and Patrick Reagan at Seven Trails at at like
That's
midnight
awesome.
or 10 at night. So yeah, it's pretty cool running his races
That is.
because
Yeah.
he definitely brings a community of people out.
Yeah. Man, I love it. Well, if Jason Green, if you're listening, thank you for the contribution that you've made to ultra running. I think my guess is that Jason Atnip, there's probably 1,000 more people like you who would rave about it. I mean, I think it's been going 10 years, and um, the growth. I mean, not that things have to grow, but healthy things do tend to grow, and it looks like what he's doing is healthy and growing. And so Jason Green, I mean, thank you for the contribution you made. Jason, before we wind up, do you have any last word, any last comments? I want to make sure that people know about Trail Trash podcast. You've had me on there before, and I just sincerely, authentically enjoy the three of you who host that. You're obviously fans of the sport, and I just love that Southern hospitality. I don't mean to make that cliche or anything, but I just really love your hospitality on that podcast. Is any last words on the Yeti or just anything about the community in general?
None at all. I mean, other than the fact that it's a great race, it's a great community, and it's definitely worth coming out and checking it out if you're West Coast folks. The East Coast has tons
Yeah,
of great races, but I feel like that one is one that is definitely a little bit different than some of these crazy hard
yeah,
mountain races that
yeah,
we have out here on the East Coast.
yeah. I honestly think we need more of those, and there might be more than I know about, but we need more Yeti 100s and Rocky Raccoons that are give people the joy and satisfaction of going for a 100 miler, but isn't these just absurd mountain 20,000 foot gain plus races? That's cool. Jason Atnip, thank you. We had some technical difficulties today, but you are a gentleman, and thank you for your patience. And we'll see you all next time.